Hi everyone, good afternoon. What's up? What have you all been up to? How is your week going? How has it been so far for the past few days? Today, we will have a very interesting conversation. And for persons who saw rather, Gyhaffin last week, we had the privilege of speaking to three persons. One who did not lose their job, but transitioned to working at home, having to manage a family full time, their children who's out of school full time, a husband, and still manage work. One job, but three positions. And we had a gentleman, James Baggett. James lost his job, do not have any children, so the financial responsibility falls on his wife. Then we had Erica. Erica is a casino worker, one of the many casino workers who were laid off, and Erica has four children. She has responsibilities, rents, uh, utilities to pay, and rent to pay. And she hasn't paid her rent in about almost 4 months now. And of course, there's pressure coming from the landlord. But from that conversation, I really felt that it was not sufficient. I felt as though we needed to say so much more. We needed to say so much more on it. So 1 minute. Let me just make sure my name is here, Keoma, so persons can see who I am. Yeah, there we go. So today I have Terence Ray, who's an economist. We have Dominique Hodge, who will tell you all about herself. But before I dive into that, I really and truly want to say this. Last week episode brought a lot of attention to persons just like you and me, regular people, day to day persons who face day to day challenges, financial challenges. All right. And we receive so much feedbacks. And it goes to show you that the moment we speak out is when we begin to understand that we are not alone. Erica isn't alone. Sharika isn't alone. James isn't alone. And even though he's a man, because there's a bit of a pride, especially when it comes to male, and there is also to women as well, right? So we need to be able to understand, number one, we are not living in our normal circumstances. A lot of persons are out of work, and it's not only in St. Martin, it's throughout the Caribbean region. All of the Caribbean islands, our economy is tourism. And you know as well as I do, for the past several months, our borders have been closed. There is no tourist activity happening in any Caribbean island. I think one or two islands opened up a few weeks ago, but at the same time, we still have to manage the corona cases that we're importing as well. Because if you're paying attention to the news, to the US and into other countries, bigger countries, you will notice there's a surge in corona cases now. I read last night in LA, in California, there's over 11,000 per day. In Miami, it's insane as well. And those are the persons who come here, especially from the Miami exit. So we need to be able to understand, even though we were accustomed of living on a one pillar economy, and we spend accordingly, our economy has been disrupted, and we ourselves need to adjust accordingly. We need to understand that we cannot spend the way we were accustomed of spending. We cannot splurge the way we were accustomed of spending. We need to understand our money. We need to not just understand, oh, I have money in my hands, but we need to know how we're spending our money. We need to know what we're spending our money on. We need to be able to have a proper budget. And people might think, oh my God, but how do I budget this money? I'm working for minimum wage, or I'm working for this. There's ways of how we can prioritize our money. I have been doing this. I spoke to several persons over this past week about, like, over 10 years ago. No one told me how to budget my money. I just know gas for my car is this, that. And I understood how much to save and how much was my expense for the month. So we need to get to that understanding. All right, we need to really get, we could say so much, oh, the government is doing this or the government isn't doing that, but the responsibility, the core responsibility falls on us. We are responsible for ourselves. And today, grab a pen, grab not a pencil, not a piece of paper, because you will lose the paper. The pencil, it can the whatever writing is on it, it can easily blur. Grab a pen and a notepad, preferably a book where the page will not come out, and take some notes, because today we will be speaking to Dominic Hodge. As I mentioned, Dominic was laid off. And this is one dynamic I really want, or we really want persons to understand. Not because you were laid off from work means the world is ending or your world is going to end. There are ways in which you can earn. We are resilient people. We went through Hurricane Irma, we went through Hurricane Maria, and we are still here. We are resilient people, all right? And we need to now become creative, to tap into our own creativity and see, how can we do this? What am I good at? What can I put a price tag on? On my way here, I saw Carisha, I'm saying it out loud, Carisha Fukan. She sent a broadcast to me selling tamarind juice for $8 a bottle. It's simple as that, but every penny counts. And this is a time where we have to put our pride aside, speak to persons if we do not know, and ask, how do I do this? Rather than sitting there or wherever you are blaming government all the time. All right. So without further ado, let me just dive straight into our gaffers today. The first person up is Dominic Hodge. Dominic and I met 5 years ago, and from since then, you know, we have been sisters from WhatsApp space. We don't see each other much, but we have been sisters. We share, we communicate, we support. Dominic, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your journey for the past several years. I appreciate the fact that in this moment, that you show your resilience and you tap into your true self. That most likely, I'm pretty sure it's challenging, and you explore that, and you didn't just explore it, you make it a tangible reality. So, Dominic.
Good afternoon, Keoma. Thank you so much. I appreciate you as well. I appreciate our journey over the past 5 years. We seem to always circle around each other, so that's always good. But good afternoon to everyone else. My name is Dominique Hodge. I'm a single mom of 2. I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. And like Keoma mentioned, at the end of May, I was laid off. I won't say that it was necessarily COVID related, but it happened right in the middle of it. And like anyone, I was kind of devastated. I was like, okay, so I'm laid off. What am I going to do now? And honestly, I've been a workaholic. I've always been working. For the first week, like, I loved it. I was like, oh, I'm home. I'm finally getting a break. I'm finally getting to enjoy myself. But literally, it wasn't even 7 days. I think it was like 6 days. I was like, okay, I've had enough. This has been fun, but I need to get back to work. Being that St. Martin, you know, we just went through COVID. No one is really hiring. Things are really tough. More people have been laid off. I was like, what can I do? Because I'm not getting calls. I'm not getting emails back. So what can I do? And funny enough, I had an idea 2 years ago that I started and couldn't complete because of Hurricane Irma and other obstacles. And this year I was supposed to take part in Carnival. I was supposed to have a booth, and I had this idea for boozy pouches. And I was like, why am I waiting? Carnival has been postponed to next year. Why am I waiting until next year? This is an idea that can work. I believe in the idea. And I literally put out the flyer before I was even completely through with the thoughts. So I kind of pushed myself, because it was like, if the flyer is out there, I have to deliver. And that's just basically a little bit of what started my journey going down that entrepreneurial road. But I feel like there's a lot more, and I'm going to give Terrence a chance, and then we'll go back. We can dive deeper into it. But I just want people to know that, like I said, I'm a single mom. I have expenses as well, but don't let not having an abundance of cash hold you back from starting your business. You can start a business with little to no cash available on hand. And we'll go more into detail about that, but that's just a synopsis about me.
Thank you very much, Dominic. To our viewers, do you see how dynamic this is already? This is what we want to do. We do not want to just rant about a government, but we want to be able to identify the strength within ourselves, the resiliency within ourselves, the creativity within ourselves. And for the first time, maybe for the first time, you were never pushed to this limit to say, hey, because before we get up and we go to a job, so we live in that monotonous lifestyle, autopilot. We were going back and forth, but here it is now. That is no longer the same right now. So we are now in an uncomfortable place. And where there is discomfort, there is opportunity. But it all depends on how you choose, what you choose. You are the ultimate driver of your own life. No one else can. The government cannot. Your job cannot. No one cannot. No one else can. Okay? You are, and you are responsible. Every single day passes, it counts for something. Each day counts, right? So Dominic, again, I applaud you for that, and I cannot wait for us to just dive straight into this. Guys, I'm asking you, get a note, get a book, get a pen, and make some notes, all right? So let's hop straight to Terrence. Terrence is an economist, and he wears so many hats. And before we came on, I had to ask, well, he said to me, actually, like, which hat will he be wearing today? So let him tell us himself, right? So Terrence?
Yes, good afternoon, Keoma. Thank you for having me on my show. It's a pleasure and it's an absolute honor. I was indeed one of the viewers last week watching the show last week, and I was very much impressed with, to be honest, your performance as the host and the presentator. And of course, you had some very wonderful guests. I happen to know one personally, indeed, as you are aware of. So that was also actually the link into my being present this afternoon on your show to continue and go deeper into the topic on hand. But to introduce myself, indeed, as Kyona mentioned, my name is Terrence. I'm Terrence Ray. Indeed, I wear multiple hats, but the hat that I'll be wearing today is that of an economist, because what many people do not know, for the simple fact that I do not really brag about it. I prefer to brag about other hats that I wear, but I am in a position that I have a degree in economics. I studied at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam in Holland. I studied economics and business administration. So that was for me the basis in my career to jump into business, because at one point after I graduated, I wanted to continue to become a certified accountant. And at that time, I asked myself, why would I want to go and learn to count money for other people? Why don't I just count my own money? So I went into business, and I've never looked back since then. So the hat that I like to brag about is the hat that I wear as an entrepreneur. And most people know me as an internet entrepreneur, because that's my specialty. For over 20 years, I've basically focused on developing businesses online on the wide world web. Nowadays, internet, but there's a new term that we use nowadays. We all say that we are doing business in the cloud now. And literally, that has been a lifesaver for many businesses that experienced Hurricane Irma and were in a position to be operating in the cloud, that they were able to continue. So this is now a new situation that we're in. And basically, as economists, I want to talk about the topic that you discussed last week. And I want to go into how our economy stands right now, and indeed how people can survive in this downturn economy. So basically, I think we'll have a very interesting conversation. I will try to keep it as basic as possible, because economics is a very technical field, and not many people specialize in that area. So I really have to break it down into simple terminology for the layman to understand. And I think you will also be definitely helping that area as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Terrence. So for our viewers, you see we have two guests, but very compact guests, very, very compact. And as Terrence said, you know, we'll be having a really deep talk, and we will make it as plain as possible. Not to, of course, not to insult the intellect of our viewers, but we want to be able to reach each and every one. All right. So if you have any questions, if you have any experiences, we always ask in advance when I circulate the flyer, the announcement, and even when I post it on Facebook, I always ask if you have any comments, comment below, or if you have anything you would like to share, you can always email us at amoek media, AMOEK media at gmail.com. All right. So last week, Erica was on. You know, we keep talking about Erica, but I will tell you the reason why Erica, of course, everyone stood out, but the reason why Erica stood out is because she was working at a casino. I'm not too sure what the wages are in a casino. I didn't ask because I didn't want to pry. Okay. But at the same time, she has 4 children. And one of her sister's child is staying with her as well. There's one income going into the household just above minimum wage. And for persons who are in St. Martin, you will know minimum wage is about 1,400 guilders gross. 1,400 guilders, Terrence, you could let me know, it's about 700 and something US dollars gross. Some persons in other Caribbean islands, you may be thinking, oh my God, that's a lot of money. But remember, in each country, a dollar is per dollar, all right? Because I know oftentimes when we talk to persons who use EC, oh, that's a lot of money. When I speak to people in Guyana, what, that's enough money by, you know? So we want you to understand is, if you find rent in St. Martin for 500 US dollars, grab it really, really quick because it's a steal of a deal. If you find rent in St. Martin for 500 US dollars, grab it really quick. It's a steal of a deal. And I'm saying that to say this, if $500 for rent monthly is a steal of a deal, you're not going to get nothing, no sea view, none of that stuff. It may be decent, depending, right? But it's a steal of a deal. So imagine minimum wage is just above that, about $250, I would say above that gross. And the income that is going into Erica's household is just above minimum wage. And her rent is $1,100 per month. 4 children, 1 income. Before COVID, of course it worked because she was working, but now she's not working. But let me say this. Erica's, the owner of the casino where Erica worked, saw Gyhaffin, that episode of Gyhaffin. He contacted her and he offered her a part-time job. But he also explained to her that things are not as good. But because he saw Gyhaffin, he reached out to her and he offered her a part-time work. And there are so many other persons who are reaching out to her. Sharika Higgs, Sharika Higgs Patrick, who was also a guest last week. She also did tremendous things to help us, Erica, herself and her family and her husband, okay? And there are so many persons, Akiba King, there are so many other persons who really, really reach out to Erica. And I really want to say to the public, thank you so much. This is what Gyhaffin is about, all right? It's not an interview, it's a discussion with you, and we're just talking basic, all right? So we want you to really understand, before your expenses were manageable, because of your salary, because of your household income, you were able to, you adjust your lifestyle according to that. Now, things have changed, but you still have the expenses to maintain. Moving forward, what I would advise you to do is, do not think based on what you're earning. Try your best to manage your income, your expenditures to a certain extent to make sure there's sufficient remaining for quote unquote rainy days. All right, but Terrence will be able to say more about that. Terrence, let me ask you, what is the state? We're in St. Martin, but we have viewership from throughout the region. I lead a group of about 70 to 80 persons, the Young World Leaders group. There's like 2 persons from Haiti in that group, and all the rest, They are spread out through the African continent and the Asian continent. So they do not always look at the live, but they always look at the replay. What is happening in St. Martin, what is happening in the Caribbean is more or less happening throughout the world. What is the state of our economy, to Terence?
Well, as you outlined in your show last week, that is basically the consequence of the state of our economy, which right now is basically in a lockdown mode. And the result of that is, of course, from the COVID-19 pandemic that has spread across the world. People, of course, are aware of what that entails. We know everything about it now. Basically, we do not know what caused it or where it came from. But basically, what we are looking at in terms of our economy on St. Martin, it started in January, basically. The coronavirus raised its ugly head in China, Wuhan to be exact, and it spread across the world from there, reaching St. Martin in around February, March. If we look at the timeline, March is when we really took it seriously. And then we went on a lockdown, full lockdown on April 6th. But the timeline gives us a little bit of a development. But actually, and this is very important for the status of our economy was impacted long before the coronavirus raised its ugly head. Why? Because we had a situation back in 2017 where St. Martin and some of the surrounding islands, but especially St. Martin, was majorly impacted by Hurricane Irma, followed by Hurricane Maria. The impact of Hurricane Irma, which was basically a Category 5 hurricane that we have never experienced in our lifetime before, impacted the island tremendously. The economy suffered from that. We were months without a regular operating economy. The island was indeed shut down for tourism traffic. Fortunately, we had the assistance from our mother country, the Netherlands, that came in and helped us with the urgent emergency recovery process. We went over into a regular recovery process, and then, of course, we all know what happened on a political level. Our government fell, and we went through a little bit of a political crisis on top of that. But we were in a situation where we were already working on rebuilding the island and recovering from that nature-based crisis. Now we're in 3 years down the road, while we're still basically in a recovery process, and a lot of people have still not yet fully recovered from the impact from Hurricane Irma. We are now being impacted again by a new type of hurricane, one that we have never experienced before. Never in 100 years have we experienced this level of a crisis, which is basically a biological crisis because of the fact that it's another nature-based crisis, but of a different magnitude and a different order. That is now also on top of what we're already going through in terms of our economy trying to recover from Hurricane Irma. We are now being impacted by this worldwide pandemic on top of that as well. So we're basically experiencing a double whammy. Now, for a lot of people, that is experiencing the first whammy from Hurricane Irma was tough enough already. Going through this economic crisis that we're now suffering from the COVID-19 crisis is, for a lot of people, a double whammy. And that is what you're seeing now in this present economy now, that we are basically at a standstill. You see now businesses are indeed laying off people, but that's a direct consequence of the fact that we don't have an economy. We are on lockdown. We have to understand what is the nature of our local island economy. We'll discuss how that fits in regionally, but everyone knows that St. Martin basically is a one-pillar economy. Why is that? We are solely surviving on income derived from tourism. So as a tourist destination, that is the premier way that we make our money. We provide tourism-based services to our visitors, the tourists visiting our islands, and that is how our economy generates revenues and income, and people are employed, people have jobs, people earn a living, people earn an income, they're able to pay their bills. And so far, for the past 50 years, basically, that has been the sole income generator of this island. For years, we've talked about diversification, about the need to be able to be sustainable in other areas as well, just not only dependent on tourism, because we see the consequence of each time we suffer a major hurricane disaster, we see the impact on our economy. Now, this impact that we're now experiencing, we have never experienced it before. So this is really a game changer, Keoma. And I think in our generation, the changes that we will experience as a result of this COVID-19 crisis will last our generation, and hopefully we'll carry on that information, that knowledge, and that mindset change to the next 2-3 generations after us. That will indeed make sure that we go forward on a different level, on a different footing, whereby we are able to indeed, on some level, be more resilient and more sustainable in terms of our economy. So if you want to go deeper into the economy of the island, we can do that. But I want to give you a chance to rebuttal what I just said.
You mentioned a generation. You know, I really want us, I include myself in the whole, I want us to be conscious, and I said this earlier, to be conscious. Do not just think, oh yeah, it's gonna pass. This is a time for us to realize we need to make adjustments. And the adjustments that we need to make is not just for today, but as Terrence just said, it has to replicate not only now, but throughout generations. So remember, we have children in our household. We have children in our community. They are seeing what is happening. Erica has a son. And let me mention this. Erica has a son from the last episode, and he's 12 years old. And while her younger children may not be fully aware as to what's really happening, her 12-year-old son is affected by it because he sees and he witnesses, he's experiencing the shift in their lifestyle. He is seeing the things that they were accustomed of buying, what came naturally as a easy flow, it's no longer the same. And it's not just in Erica's household or in one other person's household or Jane or Martha or Peter's household. I'm thinking it's almost in every household, right? So our children are seeing it. And it's now our opportunity as we learn that we impart that knowledge of financial literacy to them to understand. We don't need a textbook version. We just need to know, hey, we're making this amount of money every month. This is how we adjust. And we live, as Terrence said, we live in the Caribbean region. Every year we prepare for the hurricane season. Every single year. We know preconditionally, we need to make sure we have canned goods, flashlights, candles, all of that stuff. We have a preparation mindset when it comes to hurricane season, to the point where it's now like autopilot. We just know what to do. We don't have to follow the guidelines anymore. We do not have to wait until a pandemic hits to realize we need to adjust certain things in our expenses. Because today it might be a pandemic. Next week it might be something. Now it's global. Maybe the other time around, God forbid, it might be something that affects you alone or your family alone. All right. So as Terrence said, this is not for the Caribbean. This is for the islands that were affected. The pandemic hit us really hard and harder. The reason why is we were not fully rehabilitated as yet from Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria. Dominica was devastated by Hurricane Maria. St. Martin, catastrophic. The other islands in the Caribbean were hit very hard. Do you know how long it actually takes for a country to revive itself in that process? It takes time. Terrence, you all can tell me. Last year was actually our first high season. And it wasn't even the high season we were accustomed of having. So you can imagine an entire year of no form of proper business activity. There are businesses in Phillipsburg that were still closed up until the COVID. They still couldn't catch themselves. They still couldn't catch themselves. And then the little pieces that they were putting together to say, okay, hey, you know what? Let's prepare for this new high season, this next high season this year. Then bam, COVID happens. So what are we really doing? We need to really, be able to understand that and be able to prepare ourselves. Dominic, you mentioned you were not, you have not gained that unemployment status due to COVID, but it happened, it paralleled. It paralleled.
Yes.
What was that like for you? What were you, if you don't mind, what were you doing before? Because I really want persons to understand what your job position, your work position was before, and what is happening now.
Okay, so I started as a bookkeeper. I have a background in bookkeeping. I studied English creative writing, but my background working on St. Martin has always been in the bookkeeping / finance field. With this job, I started 4 years ago. I started doing just some basic bookkeeping. And when I was laid off, I think I started in 2019, 2019, I was actually the operations manager of the business. So I was in a management position. I was not only taking care of, day-to-day operations, but I also had to dabble in human relations, human resources. I had to also take care of some of the marketing. And I will go back to what Terrence said. It's, after the hurricane, although we were in a field that people would say benefited from the hurricane and the catastrophe, after that, we had about maybe 6 months where things were really good. And then things also took a decline. And that was straight across the board, like everywhere else on St. Martin. And I noticed things were, declining because of the position I was in. Then to be laid off in that moment, it was literally, what am I going to do? And I know for everyone who's been laid off, you have that moment. You have that, oh my gosh, I'm laid off. I have bills. Luckily for me, even though it was a management position, I had a thought where I always give my best on my job. I actually go above and beyond. And I had a realization. I was like, something, I am going above and beyond for someone else. I am building someone else's business. And for me, it's fine because that's the type of person I am. I'm going to give extra. But like Terrence said, sometimes you have to ask yourself, like while I was laid off, I said, you know what, if I can do it for someone else, I can do it for myself. I can push myself and I can push my business and build my business. And again, things were very slow coming from management position to nothing. Like Erica, I have children, I have a young child at home. And one of the things you have to do, which I'm sure Terrence and you will get into later on, is you have to budget. So my parents have always been on my back. You need to know what your expenses are, and you need to make sure that your expenses aren't more than your income. Mm-hmm. We live on St. Martin. I know the cost of living is high. It's not always possible, especially when you have additional persons in the household. But the most important thing you need to do, I said, get a pen and a notebook. You need to write down what your expenses are. What are your monthly expenses? What are your expenses per trimester? What are your expenses on an annual basis? You need to be very realistic. Trust me, you're going to start writing and you're going to see the numbers and you're going to be like, I don't want to continue because this is a lot. But if you push through and you do that little bit of work, you do that homework and you write down your expenses, it will be easy for you in a time like this to cut expenses that are not necessary. So for me, automatically, I was laid off. I have a son that's in daycare. I could not afford to send him to daycare. It works for me because now I'm at home. So I made that decision. I contacted the daycare. I let them know my situation. And I made the decision that I would keep him at home. For others, it's not possible. You still need someone to look at your child. But then you would know what can I afford? There was just some noise, so I stopped. But you need to know what can I afford. Right now I have on nails, but for the longest while I did not have on nails because for me it was an unnecessary expense. I'm not spending this additional money when I can invest it somewhere else. Mm-hmm. When I started my business, there was no money. Like I was laid off at the end of May. We are now in the middle of July and I have not been paid yet. So although I got a partial payment for my May salary, there's still a lot of payments that have not come in So I don't want people to think, oh, but she was laid off, she must have gotten paid out, she has that money. No, that's not the case. What I did do was, one out of my last paycheck, I wanted to say $200 left that I had put on the side. And I used that to buy the first set of things I would need to start the business. You do not need to come out and think, well, I'm going to start with a factory and I'm going to do this. No, you start where you are.
Yeah.
Keoma, you mentioned that it's in you. It's you have to have the resilience to go out and get it. And sometimes we're not pushed there. My father always told us that with every disaster, whether it's a hurricane, okay, in this case, it's a pandemic, whatever it is, there is always opportunity, always opportunity. The point is we need to look and see where the opportunity is, and then we need to take that leap of faith and go for it. A lot of times, and even in speaking with others, I'm realizing there's a lot of people with great ideas, but they are afraid. They're afraid of failure. They're afraid of, like everything that can go wrong. But we need to learn, like Terrence said, if you're going to go out every day, 9 to 5, some people work even longer shifts, and you're going to invest that amount of time and energy into another business, you can invest that into yourself. And it's going to be a lot of work, because working for yourself, you never stop working, but you have to do it. But in order to get there, I think you need to be realistic. You need to know what your budget is. You need to know what expenses you can cut and how to go about it. But I have more to go on, but I'm going to pass it to Terrence. But what I just want to leave with right now is that you have to take the first step. If you don't take the first step, nothing else is going to happen. Once you take that first step, everything will fall into place.
Dominic, phenomenal. What is your business? Because you kept saying your business. Let us know what is your business.
Okay, so I am actually the owner of Tropsicle, and Tropsicle is basically a popsicle company. I make popsicles with fruits that are locally grown. Everything is organic. And the funny thing is the business did not start with that. People know me right now because of my boozy pouches and my frosés, which is, let's say, a subcategory. But again, I started the popsicles 2 years ago. I had to stop with the hurricane. I had some setbacks. I wasn't able to continue. What I did in the meantime was I was preparing. There were different things I needed for the business that I knew I would need. And I would put aside some money every month and purchase things and have them. Like I said, I got laid off in May. At the middle of June, I decided the boozy pouches that I was going to do for Carnival originally in April, I'm going to come out with that because I had some of the stuff for it. And I launched with that. But because I launched with that and I started with just one little aspect, today I'm able to continue the popsicles that was supposed to be 2 years ago. And they always tell you, start where you are to have. Because again, it wasn't a lot that I had. I think it was about $200. I bought the ingredients I needed. I made my boozy pouches. And the important thing is reinvest that money into your business. And then things that I bought during the course of the 2 years has allowed me today to start back with the popsicles and have everything that I need. The popsicles are not to date because I took a chance on the booze and I went for it.
Dominic, just listening to you, I really and truly hope persons, young, old, in between, age doesn't have anything to do with it. I really hope persons are listening, because it's not about, there's one thing I really want to say. You mentioned start where you are. There is fear. I understand persons are afraid because they're stepping out into the unknown. There is, oh my God, I wonder if it's going to work. I wonder if it's not going to work. You will never know if it's going to work unless you try. And if you have a bump the first time, you still go. My sister always tells me, what? You're always persistent. Like you can't say accept no. I do not know what no is. I always keep going. And there's just one thing too. Sometimes you may have a bit of doubt, right? And not everyone has to start a business, because not everyone has that in them. But you can still be creative. But we'll touch base on that. But Sometimes we have a bit of doubt. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Be very, hear me, be very mindful as to who you go to seek that advice. Because if that person is not in that place to hear you, to receive you, to understand you, my dear man, woman, whoever you are, the reaction, the response that you were not even hoping to have, but that you should have, you would not get it. You have to hear what everyone is saying and then find the truth within yourself. Find what feels right within you, even if it's uncomfortable, and do it still. People will say so much, but you have to be the ultimate decider of your own choices. So regardless, a friend might say, "What, by now, by then, ain't gonna work." You will, do not know if it's going to work. And I'm pretty sure, Dominic, you heard that. Popsicle? What kind of thing is that? What? So you're gonna be stuffing ice cream and selling that? What? I am pretty sure, and Terrence, I'm pretty sure when you decide, like, listen, I'm gonna come online and I'm gonna make an online news site, I'm pretty sure the feedback. Look at Carisha today. Look at so many persons. There's a young girl in Dominica. I really wanted her to come on today. Let me just say hi to her. I won't call her name, but a very young girl. She, again, just like all of us, she's experiencing the heights, the brinks of this pandemic, and she decided, hey, what am I going to do? So she hasn't started as yet, but she's in the process of starting a little shop where she can sell some food items, a few like some skincare items, just to get herself started. This is what it takes. We can buy and we can resell. You know, my niece, we did our lemonade stand. Let me give the props to my sister and my niece's moms for that, and my brother as well. They did a lemonade stand for the first time. My nieces are 9 and 7 years old. And my God, I want to open a lemonade stand now because it was so good. But do not allow yourself to be held back. Do not. Terrence, what can you add to this? Like, how do we move forward with our money? How do we, there is this, the question is, Terrence, then how do we survive the downturn in the economy? How do we survive in this right now?
Well, Keoma, first of all, we need to understand how our economy works. And I gave you a perfect example of that because it is actually a riddle that we use in our monetary classes to describe how money works and how money is used to generate income, and also used as a tool, as a barter tool, and to trade, and also to settle our debts. The story goes like this, and it's I'll change that to fit our situation here on the island. It's a small island, and a rich tourist comes to the island. He goes to a hotel. Let's say he comes on his yacht. He goes to a hotel. He puts $100 on the counter. He tells the hotel keeper that he wants to inspect his rooms to decide whether he will sleep in the hotel or on his yacht. And he lays the $100 on the counter. And he goes upstairs to inspect the rooms of the hotel property. In the meantime, the hotel keeper takes the $100, runs next door to the butcher shop, and settles his $100 bill that he had with the butcher. The butcher then takes that $100 bill and runs next door and settles his bill with the farmer, the pig farmer, who he bought his meat from to sell in his butcher shop. The farmer then goes to his supplier for his feed and fuel, and he settles his $100 bill with the supplier. And of course, you know, in every economy, every island, you always have somebody who provides certain services. But the supplier, he goes to a certain individual. I won't describe what she does. And he goes to her and he settles his bill with her. And then she goes back to the hotel owner because she uses his rooms to do her business. And then she settles her bill with the hotel keeper. And as she lays the $100 bill on the counter to pay her bill with the hotel keeper, and she walks off, the tourist comes back down from upstairs. And he says, well, I don't like the room. I'll sleep on my yacht tonight, and he takes the $100 and he walks away. And the moral of the story is that with that $100, everyone on the island has settled their bill, and everyone is happy, and everyone looks forward with great hope to the future. Now that basically describes our little economy on this island, because how it works the same way, but on a macroeconomic level, whereby we have a village life on this island. We get tourists coming from abroad. They come to our island. They spend their dollars in our economy. We use that money to pay our bills, to pay our salaries, to pay our rent, to pay our suppliers, and that money circulates that way. We have always learned that for any economy to be resilient, to be sustainable, that money needs to circulate in that economy 10, 15, 20 times before it leaves that economy. And the fact that we're living on an island, our money can only circulate on the island for so long before it ultimately leaves and go back where it come from. Because remember, tourists bring that money to our shores. We have sea, sun, and sand. That is basically what we produce. We don't actually produce it. That is what we have. We are blessed with sea, sun, and sand in our economy, that we use that to provide services to our tourists, and they, in return for that service, pay us with dollars. But because we don't produce anything other than sea, sun, and sand on the island, we still need to buy food. We still need to buy medicine. We still need to buy fuel. I'll stick to those three items because people understand that. We need to buy food because we need to eat and drink. We don't produce our foods locally. We don't do anything in farming or agriculture. We don't even fish. So we buy all our food from overseas. We import goods and products that we use to consume to sustain us in life. When we get sick, we need to import medicine. So we need to buy medicine from overseas pharmacies, manufacturers to keep us healthy and keep us going. We run with electricity. Right now, our whole Zoom, Facebook communication is powered by electricity and internet. To be able to do that, we need fuel. We import fuel. Even though we have sun that can generate solar energy for some strange reason, I will not get into that in this program. We import fuel, diesel, heavy oil, whatnot, that we use to power our GB electricity and water production. So that is basically the three things that major component we need to spend our money on to import. When we spend that money overseas to import these goods, that money leaves our economy. Now, fortunately, we're in a position that every year people come to our island. They come by cruise ships, they come by plane, they come by yachts, they come by private jets, they come to this island. Many people in the rest of the Caribbean have come to St. Martin. In my business deal with them, they always ask me, Terrence, what is so special about St. Martin? Why everybody always coming to St. Martin? And we have to go back in history to understand the dynamics that make that possible. But we have to understand that St. Martin, for the past 50 years, or 50 years ago when its island started in tourism, because 50 years ago, people used to leave St. Martin to go to work overseas in other countries, in Santo Domingo, in Belize, in Panama, in Curacao, in Aruba, in oil refineries, to the United States, to England, to Holland. People used to go to work and they would send money back home to St. Martin. And that is how we got money into our economy 50 years ago to keep things going. Then came tourism. And when tourism took off, it was basically a free for all. So people with money, people with cash came to our island. They bought property, they bought land, they built hotels, they built villas, they built rental homes, they built vacation homes. That attracted the tourists that stayed in these hotels. They built casinos. People came to gamble on our island. People came to relax. People came to buy timeshares, resort. There were a lot of resort properties that sold timeshares. So that attracted tourists on the island. And then, of course, we got into cruise tourism. That became a mega business on the island. We were generating, I think, up until Irma hit us, we were generating, I think, like what, almost 1.7, 1.9, over hitting 2 million cruise visitors per year. And remember, these cruise visitors, they spend on average, according to the stats back then, almost, let's say, almost $200 per person when they are on the island. So there's a huge influx of cash into our economy. So basically, our economy was booming. There were also many other boom cycles on our island, especially in the construction sector. When all these properties were being built, that attracted a lot of people from overseas, workers, construction workers, any type of specialty these people had, carpentry, masonry, electrician, whatever, they all came to our island to work in these fields. So our island was basically booming. So you see, again, the concept goes back to that simple description where someone comes to our island, brings the money into our island, pumps it in our economy, and that money circulates in our economy and keep things going. Where our economy grows is when we create value. And how we have created value over the years here on St. Martin, we have created value by optimizing our tourism product and creating new services in the tourism field, not only in casino, resorts, villas, but we've gone into yachting, into the yachting industry. We have a big yachting season here on St. Martin, where all the mega yachts coming to the island. We have a great lagoon area where these yachts can dock and be protected from the elements. So in that sense, St. Martin have a lot of assets that creates value on our island that helps our economy grow and develop. And on a macroeconomic level, you know, we hear terms like inflation and growth and employment. But St. Martin, being a very small island, the Dutch side is 16 square miles, totally 37 square miles if you include the French side. But for a small island, 16 square miles, we are able to generate a gross domestic product of over $2 billion annually. So that's a lot of money for a small economy. And of course, we can debate where all that money goes. But I as an economist, I always talk about leakage. And in our economy, we have a lot of leakage. And the leakage occurs when we spend that money overseas. To give you an example, people love to brag that how they went to Miami to buy parts for their car, cheap. Mm-hmm. No, that's leakage, because that money to spend in Miami buying parts for your car here in St. Martin, that money could have been spent here locally at local car dealers, at local companies, and that money could have been used to pay their workers' salary. Those workers could have used that money to pay their rent, to pay their bills, to pay GB, to pay the taxes, to pay the school fees, you name it. When you take that money and you go to Miami to save $1 to buy your car part cheaper, you are throwing money out of your own economy. So I always tell people, you know, when people come to me and they say, yeah, I went to Miami, I get a good deal on a nice car part, and I'm always shaking my head like, you don't get it. And like, what do you mean? I don't buy my parts here local, boy. I like them people too expensive. You know, and that's the problem we have, that we do not understand economics. Because we don't understand economics, we don't understand the benefit of spending our money in our own economy.
But
I also ask people,
go ahead.
What is your job? Oh, I work here. And I said, but how do you get paid? Where do you think the money comes from to pay your salary? You know, and then we could have a debate about that. But basically, this is what is now happening in our economy now. The tourists, because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown, because of the global pandemic, the tourists are not coming anymore. And the tourists are not coming anymore. People are not coming to Ireland. They're not spending their money anymore in our economy. And our economy now is not getting that input anymore. So the money now that has been circulating, that has been creating economic activity, that money is no longer coming in. And that's the situation that we're in right now. So we can talk about how to deal with that aftermath, but I'll give you time to recap the story.
I really appreciate the fact that you gave that breakdown as to how our economy actually functions in St. Martin. But again, for persons who are across the region, I really want you to understand what Terence explained, the manner in which our one pillar economy of tourism functions here is the same way it functions in every other island. Okay? So let's not just think St. Martin only, it functions this way in every other Caribbean island. But now that we all know this, we have students who gain government financing to go away to study hospitality. They come back and they work at restaurants and hotels. And of course, majority of the work we do here, majority of the businesses are there to service tourists. It's to serve as a hospitality sector. So the question now is, now due to the pandemic, there is no tourist activity happening. It goes to show you not only that we need to become creative and create our own business, it goes to show local St. Martin government as well as regional government that we really and truly need to find ways of how we can create our own economy outside of tourism. Because there's so many things that are happening right here. What can we do? Erica asked the question, do we have any institution that support people who want to open their business? I mean, I can answer that, but I think besides the institution who supports persons who want to open their business, I think we need to have, again, a layman conversation and say, hey, step A, step B, step A, B, and C, because there's a Chamber of Commerce that exists. I work at Chamber of Commerce. Let me say hi to my colleagues and my friends at St. Martin Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce exists, and for persons who would really want to have an understanding as to how to go about, first of all, not even starting a business, understanding what business profiles exist. There's sole proprietorship, there's partnerships, there is a limited liability company, there is a private company, and there's another one. There's a corporation as well. All right. So we have to also be able to have these conversations and educate our people. All right. So let's touch into budgeting. But Terrence, should I go to budget as yet? Because I really want to know how things are not the same. How do we survive in this no tourist zone? How are we to survive? How do we manage the money that we have for persons who are saving? For persons who are living paycheck to paycheck, that aren't earning as much as they were, how is it that they now survive? How does Erica is here? How does the many Ericas survive in this economy? They're not earning, but rent is due, food is due, bills are due. How do we do that, Terrence? How do we do it?
Well, now that we understand how our economy works and where our money comes from, in an ideal world, we should have known how to manage that money. Unfortunately, we didn't learn that part. We learned how to make money by working, whether in the casino, in the hotel industry, being a waiter, a bartender, working in the store, selling gift items, whatever. We learned that part, and that's the easy part, but we didn't learn how to manage our money once we got it in our hands. And that's where budgeting comes into play. Now, the question that you're really asking, how do we move forward in this environment, in this economy? How do people like Erica, how do they manage their situation and manage to survive in this economic, it is what it is right now.
The crisis.
Yeah, it is what it is right now.
Crisis. Dominic, do you agree with me?
Yes, I definitely agree. It's a crisis. I think with Terrence is going to give us a technical answer, and I'm looking forward to it. But I will say this is where we kind of need to rewind the clock in our minds, and we have to remember how our forefathers did it. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, no, we don't want to go back. But sometimes we need to, because the reality is the money can only go so far. If you have $100, it can only go so far. But what we need to do now is look towards our friends, look to family members, even to sometimes it could be a stranger. And we need to see how can we pool our money together so that we have more power. Yeah. But I'm going to leave Terrence going because I want to hear his technical aspect, because I'm probably going to take notes too.
Yeah, definitely. Terrence, sorry for interjecting just
now.
No,
it's perfect. It's perfect. That's what it's about. We're supposed to get a little debate going and stimulate each other. But basically, to get into the fundamentals of budgeting, we need to understand indeed how we should spend our money once we have it. Because let's say, for instance, we all know minimum wage on St. Martin is 1,400 guilders in a month. Afgerond, let us say in Dutch. There have been many who have said that is way below the poverty level. The poverty level on St. Martin apparently is on the level of 4,000 guilders. So basically, you need 4,000 guilders to be able to live comfortably and pay your bills and survive without any extra income or ways and means to generate income. So let me go into the fundamentals of budgeting. We need to understand that there's a difference between needs and wants when it comes to spending money. We all have needs. We need food, we need drink, we need shelter. These are the basic elements that we need to be able to sustain ourselves and to survive. That costs money. So if you're living in a house, whether you're renting or you're buying, you're paying a mortgage, that falls under the category of need. You need food, so you need to go to the shops and buy food. You need to buy groceries. You need to drink. Those are your needs. The needs are different than wants. Wants is, I want a new pair of shoes. You want a new dress. Dominique wants to have some nice clothes for her children. Those are wants. Those are not needs. Those are wants. So we have to make that distinction very clearly. And of course, in all our lives, when we make money, we earn money, we spend money, we always supplement that money by taking out loans. Now, you can go into debt, and there are good debt and there are bad debt. A good debt is, for instance, if you take out a mortgage to buy a house. That's a good debt. A bad debt, in my opinion, but we can differ on that, a bad debt is that you take out a loan to buy a car, or that you take out a loan to buy a fridge, or you take out a loan to go on vacation. I consider those bad debts. As an economist, I consider those bad debt. They're good for the economy and they're good for the banking sector, but it's not good for your personal money management. And this is what the topic is about. It's now about personal finance. So how do you allocate your money once you get it in your hands every month? You need to determine what your needs are. So you need to make a list of all the items that fall under your category of needs: your rent, your food, your drink, your children, school fees, the clothes that they need to buy for school, the uniforms. These falls all in needs. You need to buy these things. If you don't buy these things, you have a problem. If you don't allocate the money to pay your rent, you're gonna have a problem. You don't allocate the money to buy food, you're not gonna survive. So those are very simple. The rule of thumb is that you spend 50%, and I'm just being global because for everyone's situation, it varies, but let's just say for the layman, the rule of thumb is that 50% of your income should go towards covering your needs. Don't go putting expensive high-heel shoes under that category because that's not a need, that's a want. So let's be clear.
Pleasure.
We are human beings and we need to satisfy our wants as well. So the rule of thumb is that you take 30% of your income and you allocate it for wants, because we want to be happy. We want that nice pair of shoes. We want that nice car. We want that nice vacation. So we need to satisfy our needs. There's a pillar of needs that we need to satisfy. There's one that we need to satisfy. We want to have fun. We want to go on vacation. We want to spend money widely. So that is a part of our human basic need as well. So we got to satisfy that. And then you have 20% left over of your budget. That 20% should be used to pay off your debts. Any debts you have, you should go towards paying out that debt. If you can allocate half of that money to save, even better. And this is where we come in now to the problem that we're experiencing in our economy now. This economic crisis have proven one glaring fact, Keoma and Dominic can concur as well. This crisis situation that we're in has proved to many people that we do not save money. Mm-hmm. We do not save for a rainy day, even though we experience hurricane annually. We do not save for emergencies. And we are now in an emergency situation. When you're saving for emergencies, you need to save enough money over time, over the years, that you have at least, again, it's a rule of thumb. So there's no magic number that it's give or take what it's supposed. It's just a rule of thumb to give our listeners an indication of what they should have when it comes to saving money for emergencies. You should have at least 6 to 12 months of savings to cover your emergency situation. What should you save? If your monthly expenditures is $2,000 a month or 4,000 guilders, according to the poverty research, if your expenditures is 4,000 guilders a month, so you need to save enough, have enough savings over time that you save at least 6 to 12 months. So that means 24,000 guilders or $12,000 for 6 months, or double that for 12 months. So you need to have at least $12,000 to $24,000 saved to cover emergencies. Now, what is an emergency? You lose your job. You get sick, you get incapacitated in some way or the other. You cannot produce income, you cannot generate the income. So if you lose your job, you need to be able to survive until you find a next job for at least 3, 6 to 12 months. Hopefully, if you lose a job today, within 3 months, you find a new job under normal circumstances. However, we are not in normal circumstances, unfortunately. So we should have had at least 6 to 12 months saved in terms of our emergency fund to cover this economic crisis that we're in, this pandemic, this lockdown. If everyone had at least 6 to 12 months of money saved to cover their monthly expenditures for 6 to 12 months, we could have survived at least 6 to 12 months without having an income. Unfortunately, we are not in that situation, not even businesses. Can you imagine? And Dominique, you're a bookkeeper, so you can concur on this field. We have seen here in St. Martin that literally companies had only 1 month's reserve in the bank. Some were lucky they had 3 months. Our government just admitted that they have 3 months reserve. I know where they got it, hide away some back somewhere. CDs, they probably had a hidden, they have 3 months reserve left over. So that means when 3 months up and they're paid all the salaries, they're paid all the bills, whatever, the money finishes. The same for people. We have 1 month, if we're lucky, we have 3 months reserve for our emergency situation. When that money is done, we have a problem. So coming back to the model, it's what you call the 50-30-20 budgeting model. You save 50%, you spend 50% for your needs, you spend 30% for your wants, clothes, vacation, nice car, whatever, and you use 20% to pay off your bills or to save for a rainy day. Now we know now that rainy days don't come just in the form of hurricane. Rainy days also now come in the form of virus, pandemics, coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever. So this is a new reality going forward that we now need to adapt ourselves to, that we literally have to save money for the fact that maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, maybe 10 years, maybe in another 20 years, there's going to be another crisis of this magnitude that we need money to survive at least 6 to 12 months. So I hope people understand that philosophy of budgeting according to that 50-30-20 rules. We're going to go now in the next phase. I don't know if we have enough time because we need to go now into the topic of how do you survive now going forward. And that is where we now literally have to learn to hustle.
Let me, just to add to this, Terrence, you know, just so persons could understand, Terrence, you mentioned in order for persons to survive, I guess the statistics, maybe there's a study in St. Martin where you need 4,000 guilders to survive, which is basically equivalent to just like, I would say $2,200 US. The reality is, this is St. Martin, but in other Caribbean islands, they're like, oh my God, that, like, I told a friend of mine in Trinidad, I said, Kevin, their rent is $1,100, $1,500. And he was like, what? In Trinidad, you can get a home, a 3-bedroom, nicely furnished home in an exclusive area. But we need to understand, in every island, the dynamics is different. But it should not take away from the manner in which we manage ourselves and how we manage our money. All right? You know what you're making. and you know what your monthly responsibilities are. And whatever your monthly responsibilities are, whenever you're saving, I mean, you can save for various things. Some person save for vacation. As Terrence said, he thinks he calls taking a loan for a vacation is a bad move. I agree with that because you'll be putting yourself in expense. You can save for that. And sometimes we feel like, oh, we want to splurge, but there's so many ways to do creative things on a budget. All right. To money management, Emilio and I were talking a few days ago, and I told him, you know, I came from a household, let me say this, I came from a household where my mother told me years ago, I mean, it will be like 9 years since she passed away this year, but my mom said to me, if they earn $100, they save 20 from it. And they make that work. If they earn $100, they save 20 from it. So I was not raised in a household where I was deprived of my basic needs. There was always food, there was always clothing, there was always shelter. All right. But we didn't take big vacations every year. Our vacations were always going back to Guyana. And it took years in between to plan that trip. And we knew how much it cost. All right. But when I lived on my own, I budgeted. I didn't need anyone to tell me to budget. So I knew this is what I did. And I'm encouraging persons to do this as well. Go to the gas station, fill your gas tank. How much does it cost to fill your gas tank? Ask yourself, how long would it last you? How long would a full gas of tank last you? For me, I budget, and I'm talking about over 10 years ago. I told myself 2 gas tank full per month. And not because I manage it and I say 2, mean I'm going to just, oh, it's on half, it's on quarter, let me finish it. No, if I do not have a reason to drive, to go anywhere, I stay in. And I didn't feel deprived. I was aware of what I was doing. When it comes to utilities, I said no more than XYZ, 125 guilders, no more than that for utilities. For internet, no more than that. For food, even though I'm slim, I'm a foodie, I eat a lot. So I spend most of my money on food, right? I spend most of my money on food. But when it came to saving, I did a calculation of how much my expenses are and how much I want it to be. I'm not spending no more than XYZ a month. And I have an expense account at the bank. So I go and I deposit a fixed amount every single month on this account, and the balance goes on my savings account in another bank. And when I was about 19 or 20, I destroyed the ATM card a long time ago from the savings account. Do I tap into my savings? Of course I do. But I can save. Like I was able, after Hurricane Irma, there were things I needed to do. So I was able to tap in and I was able to get several $1,000s without even worry because I had things to take care of after Hurricane Irma, right? So it's about discipline. And I want you to know, I still felt comfortable. I still felt comfortable because I even had a little budget for recreation. I like going to the movies. I like going out for dinners. So I had like a $200 or $250 per month. And I didn't try to finish it either. So you can be creative as to how you spend your money and still feel as though you're not poor, you're alive. You still feel alive because you know what you like. You understand what it takes for you to get what you like. And you just simply allocate that in your budget. But ensure you save and do not tap into your savings. Your savings doesn't exist. It doesn't exist until there's a real need, like now. Dominic, you started your business, right? What was your finances like? If we may ask, what was your finances like for you to even start? Did you had $1,000, $500, $20,000 in the bank to say, okay, you know what? I can use this. What was that really like for you?
Can you repeat the question, Keoma? Because I think you went out a little bit, so I'm not sure if it's towards me or Terrence. The question, please.
Okay, let me repeat it. So I said, you started your business, right? What was it like for you? Did you have $20,000 in accounts? Did you had 1,500, 2,000? What was that like? How was it for you to start that financially? But let me say this. Let me just read out a few comments before we go further, because whenever there's 4 at a time, it just things. Fiona Ross Bishop says, I saw my parents' budget too. I do the same. So you see, we're not aliens here. We're not aliens. There are other people who also budget. Sharika, hey Sharika, what's up? Sharika said, that's right, set the budget. So Sharika agrees we do need to set our budget. Zuri said, she is guilty of spending majority of my earnings on food as well. but Zuri, I do not spend majority of my savings. What I spend on food is allocated in my expense budget. My savings is totally different from that. I have gotten better over the years though, so that's very good. She said discipline and balance after that emergency fund. So she gained discipline and balance over the emergency fund. All right. So Dominique, how did you start your business? Did you have money there, or what was it like for you?
Okay, so everyone's talking about budgeting and savings. I said already, write down your expenses so you know. Realistically, I was not saving. I was not saving at all, or even how I should. My parents, I can hear my mother in my head right now saying, I keep telling you to save your money. One thing I want to say to those who have difficulty budgeting and saving money, think of your money like a cake or a piece of pie, right? So if you have an entire cake and you have to use that, you're not going to give out all of the cake and not save any for yourself. You are going to take a slice for yourself. Money is the same way. If you're making, let's say, $1,000 a month, you don't want to give that full $1,000 out, because that is money that you worked hard for, and now you have no money in your pocket. You left no cake for yourself. So everyone is enjoying the benefits of your hard work, but you are not. So when I started the business, to say that I have a savings, no, literally, because what I did was monthly, I would allocate money towards the business over the 2 years. So I purchased materials that I needed. Some of the materials I used for the pouches were actually intended for the popsicles. But again, starting where you are with what you have, I realized, okay, so I'm going to put something aside and I'm not going to use it because its purpose was for popsicles, but I can use it for my pouches and it will help me move forward. And then over the business, over the 2 years, so I purchased materials that I needed. Some of the materials I used for the pouches were actually intended for the popsicles. But again, starting where you are with what you have, I realized, okay, so I'm going to put something aside and I'm not going to use it because its purpose was for popsicles, but I can use it for my pouches and it will help me move forward. And then over the business, over the 2 years, so I purchased material that I needed. Some of the materials I'm hearing myself back, so that's the pause. Intended for the popsicle. But again, starting where you are with what you have, I realized, okay, so I'm going to put something aside and I'm not going to use it because I think something's wrong because I'm hearing audio repeating. I can use it for my pouches and it will help me move forward. And then over the business, over the 2 years, so I purchased material that I needed. Some of the material I'm hearing myself back, so that's the pause.
Yeah, I'm hearing it too.
But again, starting where you...
1 minute. I don't know if it's on my end. Is it there still? I'm not too sure if it's on my end or not.
Okay, I think it stopped.
Okay. Okay. So let's try
Keoma, do you need the mic, mute your mic as well? Because when she's talking, your mic is still on, I see.
Okay, let me mute it. Dominic, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, I ended up using stuff that I had saved up for before. But again, it's just making sure that you put a little bit of money aside, because again, I was spending money 2 years ago that I did not need it, was additional income, and I put it towards the business, and that's how I invested into it. And I had material going into this. For this initial thing, like I said, it took me about $200 that I did an initial investment, and I started. And now, like literally with a little bit of money that I am making, I am saving, because there's a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck, and it's not a matter of them not being disciplined. They just do not have any income to spend. There is literally nothing by the time they pay their bills. But again, I think if you write down your expenses and you go over, like Terrence said, what is a need, what is a want? A lot of people right now, and some companies may hate me for saying this, a lot of people are paying for like cable TV. But in reality, the children aren't really looking at cable TV, they're on the internet. So that's something you need to look at. Does it make sense for me to pay cable TV and internet, or can I just go ahead and can I just pay internet? And it's stuff like that where you have to decide. And when it comes to your expenses and saving, it's a very personal something. This, I cannot look at you, Keoma. I can't look at Terrence and say, well, Keoma is doing this, so I'm going to do this. Or if I don't do this, Keoma is going to look at me crazy. You have to know for yourself what you can do without. And again, whatever you can do without, do without. And it's no shame. It's nothing. You can either live in debt for the rest of your life, or you can do without certain wants, like Terrence mentioned, and then go ahead and be in a better position later on, because then you're able to save, you're able to do things, and you can find yourself in a better position. Going back to, don't be afraid, whether it's a business or anything that you're going through. If you're having difficulty, it does not make sense to suffer in silence. If you are struggling, especially, I know a lot of moms have a hard time reaching out for help because they feel like they need to be the super mom and get things done. But if you can reach out, there are usually so many people willing to help you. With my business, even with little things, like just the other day, I had a friend of mine, she reached out to me. She was like, hey, do you need me to give you some money to get some materials? And I was like, oh no, I'm good. But I really appreciated the offer, because I may not need it now, but in the future, I may need it. And now I know I can turn to that person. I've heard people say, well, you know, I was honest and I went to someone and I told them I couldn't pay this and they're paying it for me so I can catch myself. All of that is fine. But again, you have to take the first step, and you have to be realistic. Make sure that you don't have a whole bunch of wants. If you're saying you have no money, but you're eating out every day, you need to look into that. It might be cheaper for you to invest in a stove and go to the grocery store than to be buying food on the road every day. But again, you have to be honest, discipline, and go ahead and do it. But usually when you take that first step, there's usually so many people who are willing to come in and help you.
Dominic, you hit, listen, this talk, this Gyhaff today is so on point. It's so on point. And I hope that there are persons who are viewing and who will look at the live after, that they really make notes and really, you know, learn from what we are talking here today, what we're saying here today, what we're gaffing about, you know, because you do not have to have $1 million or even $1,000 or goddamn, not even $500. You only need to have the will, the desire, and just go. You just need to just do it. And the moment you start, there'll be someone, I promise you, there'll be someone who will be there to assist you. Many times you feel like, oh my God, but what am I going to do? And I can tell you, you see, Dominic, you see what happened to you. Your friend reached out to you. You didn't ask, but your friend reached out to you. You see, and I had experiences like that over the years. And I would say this, there's someone or people who are always paying attention. Of course, everyone has their motives, but there are people who care authentically. They're always paying attention. They're watching from the sidelines. While you're in the boxing ring, doing whatever it is you're doing, they're on the sidelines watching. And the moment they see, hey, he or she needs me right now, or I need to interject here to impart a knowledge or to give some assistance, that person will show up without you even knowing. But do not do it with the anticipation that someone is going to come to help you. Do it because you want to do it. This is what you have to do. Feel compelled to do it without pressure. Feel compelled without pressure. Know that you have a responsibility. And each day counts. Each day counts. Man, I'm telling you, man, it's so essential. And we have to remember, be open to feel uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because you will no longer be spending as you're accustomed of. You will no longer be doing the things you're accustomed of doing day to day. So you have to be willing to adjust your day-to-day activities. You may wake up 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but now you have to wake up 3 o'clock in the morning to prep yourself, depending on what you're doing. But then again, Dominic, you mentioned a community pool. Like, we need to also find that way of how we can say, hey, you know what? We have it for partner hands, right? Where persons will put money in a pot or so, but now we can be creative and say, hey, you know what? Partnership. You have $500, you have $100. Let's put our money together and start a business. We do not have to go and say, oh, I want my own thing. We can do it together because the resources, the financial resources, is very meager. And let me repeat that. Financial resources for some or for many is very meager. And because of that, it's okay to gather a few friends, the same friends you go chat and melee with. You can bring those friends together and say, hey, you know what? Put your little thing here. If Erica asked just now for advice, if there's institutions, we can come together and see how we can advise you, how you can create that partnership. Make sure we assign you to or guide you to go to a legal firm that can give you that guidance, and you can come together with your family, your friends, and start a business that is run together. And isn't that what Indians do? Isn't that what Chinese do? This is what they do. One person doesn't stand alone. It's collectively. And we have to be able and be willing to do that as well. Terrence, I see you agree with that. Dominic, you want to say add to that?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Dominic hit the nail on the head that I want to piggyback on in terms of being proactive when it comes to money management. You know, we have a very love-hate relationship with money. And I think because of the fact that many of us, when we were growing up, we heard things from our parents like money don't grow on tree, money is the root of all evil, you know, and we have to understand that money is a very fundamental part of our lives, even though we never learned to really manage money. But our relationship with money is also very metaphysical. I literally have to Google it to make sure that I'm using the right word. Mm-hmm. Our relationship with money is very metaphysical in the sense that if you hear things like, you know, money is the root of all evil and money doesn't grow on tree, you know, it tells us a lot, because what basically it's saying is that money do not like people who are desperate. I'm sure you've also heard that saying as well. Money like people who can manage their money. The more you have, the more you get when it comes to money. Again, we've heard that expression as well. So what does that really mean? It means that we have to be proactive when it comes to managing our money. In this economy right now, again, we keep calling Erica name, but Lars, she is a perfect example of the ideal person in this situation who needs help in this current crisis. But a person like Erica, for instance, and all others in that situation have to be proactive when it comes to managing their money. That means they literally have to put their heart on the shoulder and go out there and have a conversation with their landlord. You can't make rent this month. You got to be honest with your landlord and be upfront about that and make an arrangement. Even if it's just $100 a month that you're paying to the good gentleman, a good landlady, something. GB, your GB bill, you got to be proactive in cutting down that GB cost. If it means turning off the airco, turning off lights, turning off the TV, whatnot, turn off the porch light. Why do we have to put on a porch light nowadays for? It's just expenditures for nothing. So we have to be very proactive when it comes to managing money. So I'm pretty certain that people are going through that as well. Also meaning that before you reach to that point that your emergency fund is up, you have to knock on the door of government or knock on the door of institutions or organizations that can help with your family situation. You have children, school, teachers, associations, community councils, district councils, all these civic organizations out there, start knocking on their doors, because you're going to need that help down the road. Because Keoma, like I've said, I keep saying it to everybody, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Things are going to get much worse before things get better. We have to be realistic. It doesn't make any sense to say that, you know, I'm preaching doom and gloom. We passed that phase long time ago. If you don't realize now that we're in a doom situation where we literally are talking about doom and gloom, then I have pity on those who don't recognize that situation, honestly. So you have to start planning for worst case scenario. And I told Keoma this yesterday. I said the worst case scenario that we're going to face here in St. Martin is that government is going to have to open up soup kitchens in all districts on the island, because people is not going to have food, not going to have money to buy food. There might not even be food to be sold in the shops that we can buy. So government will have to be proactive themselves and start managing food supplies, stocking, storing foods, so that they can start feeding the people when the time reach. It's political to talk about this topic, but this is what Holland is anticipating happening here on the islands. And this is why they are taking measures to put an entity into place for when that time reach, because what they plan to do is to bypass government and go directly to the people that will need aid, that will need help, that will need funding to survive. You cannot run the risk that you trickle the money through all kinds of organizations and then money keep leaking on the side. That money has to go directly to the people who will need it most. So yes, things will get worse. So you have to be proactive now. If you find yourself in a house, living in a house where you can't afford the rent, it might be difficult, but start looking for something cheaper. Start looking for friends or family that you can move in with and live together under their roofs. We have a lot of people on the island that have homes that they paid off already. They don't have a mortgage to pay, they're not paying rent. They own the house outright. So many people have homes with rooms, extra rooms in them. If that happens to be one of your family members, start talking with them now. Start being honest, start being upfront and say, listen, worst case scenario, can me and my family or my children move in with you in that spare bedroom that you have? We pay as much as we can afford to pay for it in order to cut costs, because you have to cut costs. Those who lost their jobs, there's no short-term possibility to get back a job anytime soon. So when you run out of funds and run out of means to get funding, you have to take measures. So even though I'm somebody who, I told someone the other day, I'm a realist. So, you know, you gotta be real, you gotta keep it real. So that's why I said, you know, we need to learn to hustle. Because that's actually my type of living. I like to hustle. I like a good hustle. If you ever see me down by the supermarket selling pens or pencils, you know I'm hustling.
Yeah, you know, what you said, it really will get worse before it get better. And the people, excuse me, who will benefit the most are those who act now. Those who make the moves now will be the one that will secure themselves, so when it get worse, it may not be bed of roses, but it will be not as bad as some who does not. What is it they say? Preparation. It's better to prepare. I lost the quote. It's better to prepare and fail to prepare, right? So are we preparing? Not preparing, and I want to say this too. I really want to add this. Terrence, you mentioned for persons who may have expensive rent that they can no longer afford, and they can look in their network to see maybe a family member if there's a home. Keep that as an alternative. I personally do not want to encourage persons to, oh my God, the world is ending. Oh my God, it's so bad. Let me run. Feel comforted knowing that there is a way, a last resort. It should not be your excuse to just run because you know it's there. You have to exhaust all of your resources first. And when you say, listen, I've done everything I believe I could have, and it doesn't work, then. But do not just be comforted by, oh, this person is there, I can go there. You're lazy. Or should I say, can I say that? Is it okay for me to say that? That you're lazy? I
Let's
mean,
be honest. Let's be frank and let's be
yeah,
honest in this conversation. Yeah.
I really want us. I honestly, I mean, maybe people might comment and don't agree with what I just said, but I really and truly want us to know our own strength, and not because a result is there, we run to it first. I feel comforted knowing that a friend said, hey, if there's anything we can come, you can come here. A family member says, if there's anything, you can come here. But do not take that as a first opportunity to run. Because if you run away from this, you will run away from any other disaster that come your way. Any other thing that come your way, you will keep running. You have to figure it out for yourself. It may not be a business. It may be going out foot to foot and looking for a job. You can look for work because there are some places now that are reopening, and you can have part-time jobs too. I saw a young lady, Cindy. She posted on Buy Sell and Trade that she's looking for someone to do part-time work, administration work, persons who speak English and French. There are opportunities out there, but if we do not put ourselves out there and make ourselves aware of what is there, we won't know. You see what I'm saying? So I do not want you to just feel, oh my God, the world is going to end, and run to the next offer of, oh, you can come and stay with me. I really want you to exhaust your resource. Dominique, do you agree with me with that?
I agree. I also think, like you said, it may not be that you have to go and start a business, but you may know someone who is on the brink and has everything it takes to start that business. Your job may only be to motivate that person and help that person go. Secondly, yes, you can look to your friends, you can look to family to move in, but there are other times where you can partner together. Like I said, if we go back to how it was, yes, I've heard stories that they used to go next door. Can I get a cup of sugar? Can I get this? Can I get that? And they would, barter, make deals. I'm not saying you even have to go that far, but even right now with my pop-ups, what I do is I always bring in someone else. I always bring in another entrepreneur or someone who's trying, so that we can both. Last week I had 2 come with me, or this week I'm going to have 2 with me. So that's a group, like I said, I was going to do Carnival. I went into it with a partner. I had a business partner, and we still do things together because it just made more financial sense. It's not that I want to do it to say that I did it. No, now I'm getting to do something, but I'm also helping someone else to do something. And it goes vice versa. I've had a lot of friends reach out to me. So again, you don't have to start a business. You may know someone. Keoma, it could be that you decide you want to start a business and I'm not doing anything. And I can tell you, you know what, Keoma, I can help you do X, Y, Z in your business. You have to look to your friends now and say, how can I help? How can I assist? There are people who have, they have great advice for finance. Someone may know Terrence and may be able to come and say, you know what, Terrence, can I ask you a question? And maybe Terrence can give them the advice that they need to take the step that they need to take. And again, like you said, it's being creative. It doesn't have to be something astronomical. I've seen people do everything. Coming back to cutting expenses, when we go to the supermarket, what I realize here on St. Martin, much caught up in name brands. We need to learn, like Terrence said, when you're cutting back on the electricity, we can cut back on some of those name brands in the stores as well. We can cut back on some of the stuff. It doesn't matter what paper towel you're using. The paper towel is going to work. It doesn't matter what kind of macaroni you're using. It's macaroni. You're going to eat it and it's fine. But I feel like we have a sense of, well, we've enjoyed this for so long. I'm used to this. Why do I need to cut back? But again, reality is we are in the middle of a crisis. Terrence said it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And if we do not adapt, we will not be able to continue forward. I see a lot of people who are now into agriculture, who are farming, and these people are doing swaps. There are even some who are selling. There are some who are trading. It all depends on you, but you have to start, because these people went in their backyards and they are now swapping. They are selling. Imagine I can have a tomato tree And I can come to you, Keoma, and be like, here, look, here's a kilo of tomatoes. And you
Yeah.
might say, Dominique, well, let me pay you for that kilo of tomatoes.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem like much, but that money, like Terrence says,
Local
that
economy.
circles back into the economy. You know, it goes back and I can go pay, and it's that circle keeps going around and around. So that's what I have to say. I agree with Terrence. I agree with you, Keoma. I think today is a great talk. Even for me, I've learned a lot. And we just need to remember, don't be lazy. Don't just jump to the first excuse, but remember that we can find friends and family who will work together, and we can circulate that money. We can put stuff together and try to make the best of the situation.
Oh my God, perfect. Well said, well said. I'm looking on the time, you know, I keep telling myself every episode, oh, it's gonna be an hour, hour and a half, but it goes, do you see how deep it is? Do you see how engaging it is? Is it just me? Do you see how engaging the information is so necessary? And sometimes I feel as though I do not want to shortchange our community. I don't want to shortchange our viewers for this vital information, you know? So, Terrence, 2 sentences only, because we're looking at time. Will budgeting be enough?
No. Once we learn to budget our expenditures and keep our costs under control, we now got to move to the next element, which is raising our income. You know, in a normal circumstances, we could raise our income by getting a better education, improving ourselves education-wise, and getting a higher pay, a higher, better paying job, whatnot. In this economy now, what I started a series called St. Martin Hustle, but it's basically piggybacking on an issue that you have to be proactive, you have to be a hustler. People have a lot of skills. There are people who can cook, people who can do hair, people who can do nails, people who can fix clothes, sew clothes. Schools starting next month, some children don't have, or parents don't have money to buy a new uniform, but they can buy old uniform and adjust them to fit the children. There's no shame in that. The children hardly notice it anyway, and you don't see it from the outside that has been the case anyway. So you have to be proactive. I made some notes because I was in a fortunate situation that I lived for many years in Europe, and in Europe I get to travel. And one of the travels that I did, I went to Germany to a seminar that was hosted by a guru, a financial guru, lifestyle guru named Bodo Schaefer. And one of the first things I learned from him was pay yourself first. You know, so we got to start paying ourselves first. Dominique mentioned that the minute you get an income, put aside that money, that piece of cake for yourself. That is what we need to do at all times when we're generating income. We need to put aside money for ourselves to save, whether for emergency, for a rainy day, to invest in ourselves, and invest our future in a business. We need to put the money aside. We now learn that we need to have money saved for emergencies. That's a fact now. We cannot avoid that. Other ways and means to what I call hustle. I mean, and I say hustle, it sounds negative, but I mean hustle in the sense that we can make a dollar, even in this economy, as long as we make sure that we spend that dollar in our own economy. And that's why I advise in one of my articles online on my news site is to use the guilder. We are fortunate that we have in St. Martin a guilder currency that we can use as a sort of barter tool in our local currency. We can all those agricultural stuff, those tomatoes, and personally, I love broccoli. So anybody who have broccoli, hit me up. I can pay for those broccoli with guilders. I can take guilders off my bank account and pay with that currency. I don't need to use dollars. We can then save those dollars for what they are actually intended to be used in our economy. Those dollars should be used to buy food from overseas, to buy fuel, to buy medicine. When we get that liquidity fund from Holland, because of my background, one of my hats, I can tell you that a plane, we literally had to fly in that money on a cargo plane. Well, it was a cargo flight, but it was a regular plane. At a cargo flight, we fly in that money here into St. Martin in dollars. That money was deposited into a bank. I wouldn't say what day, when, because we didn't want to get trouble, but that money is literally flown into our island, put into the banks. Now, instead of taking out those dollars out of that bank, we take out guilders instead. We spend that money in our economy and we save those dollars. That's on a macroeconomic level. But for our society, for our community, we got to start learning to hustle. And that's why I use that word, because at the end of the day, as long as we keep those guilders circulating in our economy in that circle, and we need to have circling around in our own economy 10, 15, 20 times before we go to the bank and take those dollars out to buy those food, groceries, imports that we need, fuel, medicine to sustain us in our local economy. But we got to create value by doing things ourselves. And I can tell you, indeed, there are many people, I'm amazed when I get into discussion with people, I hear how much talents they have, what all they can do. And I'm saying, man, if we start doing all these things ourselves, even in a regular economy, and that's why I told Keoma last night, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not all just doom and gloom. There is indeed a light at the end of the tunnel, and we can indeed focus on that light, because in the meantime, before we reach that point in the tunnel, there's so much we can do to better ourselves, to better our local economy, to make ourselves resilient, to make ourselves sustainable. We have not gone into the regional aspects of this crisis, but Keoma, we can even do that in another episode. But people talk about travel bubbles in this COVID-19 pandemic. Let's create economic bubbles as well in the Caribbean, in the region. In the old days, St. Martin produced salt. St. Kitts had cane. Each island had something. Dominica had the most tasty water I've ever tasted in my whole life. So if Dominica export water to us, that's a blessing right there. So each island has their own specialty that they can do to trade amongst each other and stimulate a regional economy as well. Yeah. Not only locally, we can also do it regionally. That's how we stand strong together. But on a local level, on a micro level, people need to learn to be proactive, because you cannot wait around for when things happen. You cannot be like doing like an ostrich, putting your head in the sand and hoping this thing will go away. It's not going to go away just like that. It's a new life for us. It's a new way of living. It's going to be a new normal, as the word said. It's a new normal. We have to adapt to that new normal, and we have to start thinking in terms of business and start thinking in terms of economy, learn budgeting, learn economics, learn personal management, learn when to take a loan, when not to take a loan, learn how to spend your money locally and when you have to spend it overseas and why you have to spend it overseas. Learn the difference between these two. And at the end of the day, my final thought, ladies, is that for some reason, I've always managed to have a network around me. People naturally gravitate around me, people who like my way of thinking, who have my entrepreneurial spirit. So anytime I need to do something, launch a new service, launch a new product, I always have people in my network that I can tap into. They always just a phone call or nowadays a WhatsApp message away that I can tap into. We went into lockdown mode from actually shut down in March, and we're on full lockdown in April. And 3 months later, I have a new product on the market, a brand new product called Inside St. Martin News Magazine. And I just didn't do that on my own. I have people in my network that help me create that product. Now, moving forward, our aim is to hustle to the point that we sell that magazine in all shops to people with article contents about indeed budgeting, managing our life here in St. Martin, how it is to live inside of St. Martin, what we can do, what we can't do. Focus on that aspect of our living here in St. Martin and give people information. We're going to have advice columns, how to deal with the legalities around losing your job, getting fired, taking an employee to court, dealing with government, getting aid, funding, all that stuff, how to create a new business, how to get funding. Erica had a great question about that. There is, for instance, everyone knows after Hurricane Irma, we had credits. It's still there. You can still go to credits and get a loan to start a micro business, small business, whether it's a hair salon or a bakery shop, or what Dominica proposed with her tropicals. These are all possibilities that you can get funded at, for instance, a credit. As an insider wearing a different hat, I can tell you that there is something on the way coming that will also help startup entrepreneurs to start up their business. That will help them jumpstart their business in this economy, because this economy, from a government standpoint, from a kingdom standpoint, they all agree on one thing. We need to change, we need to adapt, but we also need to help businesses grow here in St. Martin. And I think that's something that is going to be a big light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people the possibility to start their own business. And I'm happy to tell all you, tune in maybe next month. In 2-3 months from now, you'll see that possibility being available here on St. Martin.
Terrence, listen, how do we even add more to this? How do we really add more to this? But I would add, Roxy, one of our viewers, Roxy Simmons, she said, at those who are not working, start yard sale. Look around your home, look around. There is so much you have that you do not need. Sell. Be in the survival mode. So you hear that? So there are so many things in our homes so that we're not using. Maybe clothing. You can wash them, do whatever, and sell them. I bought stuff from a thrift store before. It could be books, it could be clothing, it could be furnitures. There's too many things that you have. You can be creative and sell those things to earn money. Okay? And don't feel like, oh my God, things are so bad, I have to sell my items. No, look for things in your home that you are not using and you can sell them. Have a yard sale. So Roxy said that. She said, in this lockdown, we were not only going anywhere, sell, like we're not going anywhere. So sell, right? To women, your pocketbooks and all those shoes, start there before it dry rot. Let's start preparing. People, you need to start hustling. Our situation is not getting better. I live in St. Eustatius, and I thank God there was no slashing of payments and no one lost their jobs. So for Roxy, there are so many persons who will look at you and everyone in St. Eustatius, aka Statia, and say, you all are blessed. You all are really blessed. I mean, there is no electricity. I mean, St. Eustatius is run by solar energy, isn't there? So the entire island is powered by solar energy. So that in itself is a massive reduction to the monthly.
I have a problem with.
Sorry?
I said just water they have a problem with, apparently.
Well, but at least they don't have to think about electricity, and this is something that we can replicate throughout the region. And Terrence, what you mentioned just now, that it doesn't have to be only a local effort. We can create commerce throughout the region. I mean, it has been happening, but now we can do it even more intentionally. Yeah, Dominic, in closing, like we really have to go here, but in closing, Dominic, how would you, no, Terrence, in closing, how would you want to round this off? Give us a gist. How do we close this off? Because the conversation still needs to happen. I believe we still need to take on this course. But for today, how do we close it off?
Well, I don't think we're closing the topic because I'm going to take this.
Stick a pin for now. Stick a pin.
Yeah, I will stick a pin in it indeed. But I'm going to take this episode. I'm going to add it to my series about the St. Martin hustle. Because Sunday coming, we also launching a show that we did last week Sunday about budgeting. So I'm going to add that to the series as well. But indeed, it's important for people to understand that there are a lot of lessons to be learned from this crisis. There's a political saying that don't let a good crisis go to waste. And in this case, we literally cannot afford to let this crisis go to waste because there's so much things we can learn from this crisis. This crisis actually forced us to sit down, quiet, and reflect. Think about our life, think about what we have been doing up until this point. Where have we been going with our life? Why? Why are we doing certain things that we've been doing all the time? What purpose has it served? I mean, these are all metaphysical questions that we can ask ourselves at the end of the day. The reality is that going forward, it will never be the same. So this is a great opportunity for us, all of us, to literally change our lives and reinvent ourselves. Me being an entrepreneur, I can advise people to always try a thing when it comes to business. As an entrepreneur, I have failed more times than I have succeeded. So there's no shame in that. If you start 10 businesses, and Dominique can concur, if you start 10 businesses, 8 will fail. 1 will be more or less so-so, and that one little hit you get will be worth it all. Trust me, it will be worth it all. That lifestyle and way of thinking, we have to now start adapting to move forward. And I think for a lot of people, even though the show might be short and there's so much more people can learn, I see people commenting that they want to learn more, they're eager to learn. To those people, I can say just send me a message via Facebook, via Messenger. Any question they have, I will indeed help them and answer them as much as possible. That's actually how I got in contact with Erica. She reached out to me via my WhatsApp news service, and we've been communicating ever since. And then I introduced her to you, Keoma. So that's how I got that ball rolling. But that service, quote unquote service, is something that I do. I'm like what you call like a pro day lawyer. You have any problem, any issues? Feel free to contact me. I will do my best to help as many people as possible. I have connections, I have contacts. Some people in St. Martin, they know me as the go-to person on St. Martin to get things done in St. Martin. Hey, it is what it is. I literally, I'm a walking phone book. My phone is literally filled with hundreds of telephone numbers. So there's always somebody I can reach out to. I remember when I was working in a previous government function, one of my colleagues, I see she tuned in. Hey, Dorothy, how are you doing? She always would call me and ask me for a number of so-and-so. If I have the number of so-and-so, I always had the number. So at the end of the day, feel free to reach out to me, contact me. If people know how to reach me, you can reach me online on Facebook, or also via WhatsApp. And I'll definitely try my best to help. I have a network that we, like I told Keoma as well. Dominique, feel free to contact me as well, because I see you have some nice products that fit into another service that we're providing. I have a service called stmartinflowers.com. I work with a lady that does edible bouquets, Kyla. Hi, Kyla. And we have a little network going on there, a little e-commerce business. That is actually keep us going during this economy as well, because even though we are in a lockdown, we have people overseas that wants to order stuff and have delivered for their loved ones. People who make birthday, anniversary, whatnot. People trying to reach and stay in contact with their loved ones here in the island. We provide a service for them. We can deliver flowers. So Dominique, hey, let's talk. So this is what I'm saying, that utilize your network, because that's the whole philosophy of what I try to teach people now in this economy. Learn to work together here on St. Martin in our own island. Let our money circulate as much as possible in our own economy. Keoma mentioned the Chinese, the Indians, the Arabs. They all do it in their communities. They help each other. They help each other start businesses. When one needs funding for something, they lend them the money. That's how they survive in their economies. We can do the same as well. As locals here in St. Martin, we have a blessing in the sense that we have it all here. And at the end of the day, this is our home. We're not leaving. We're not going anywhere. Even though the crisis might hit us to the point that we literally have to stand in bread lines, we're not going anywhere. This is our island. And even that can work out to be an advantage for us if we know how to hustle. With that, Keoma, I end my talk for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Terence. I saw Sharika, I want to mention this. I saw Sharika commented saying, give us a tax break. I would say this, before we go to Dominic, I would say this. At the beginning of, maybe this might be a bit controversial, but I'll say it still. At the beginning of COVID, our utility company, they announced to give a certain amount of reduction. I think it was in the fuel clause, and persons were exempted from paying that bill or the bills during that time for a certain time. But now that gateway is reopened again, we have to pay the bill. And now you see there's a notice came out, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, where they're cutting. So I mean, if persons aren't working and you give a period of time where they weren't able to pay that bill, right? What happens now? Because now you have pile up bills. How are people going to pay that bill? I mean, they were exempted for that period of time, but how are they going to pay? Because no one is working, and now they're announcing that they're having disconnections. So we don't even want to talk about that, but this is something too that we also have to keep in mind. Dominic, to round up, how How do you end this? Also, how can we support you? Terrence already said it on his own, how persons can find him. But Dominic, for your roundup, and how can we support you and let the community know where you are, how often you're out there with your pop-up business, how can we support you? But again, let's just end it off to make this all good.
I'm just going to piggyback off of what Terrence said. Use your network. You have people who know something that you may be in need of, information that you may be in need of. Go ahead, ask them. If you need help, if you need assistance, usually once, to me, I consider it the snowball effect. It's like a snowball. If you put a snowball on a cliff and you don't do anything, it's going to stay there. It's going to remain the snowball. But when you push that snowball off that cliff and it starts rolling, it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Take the first step. Look for the opportunity in the crisis. Look for the silver lining. Take that step, and you'd be surprised once you start moving how many people are going to come in, how many people are going to assist, but also just you on your own, how much you can accomplish on your own, and you can get somewhere further. Like Terrence said, this is our home, and you have to learn to hustle, expand. Do not stay on one pillar. Like for me, I also do macrame. That is something that, although I'm not pushing it all the time, I do have an order, and that order can help me then invest back into one of my businesses. Terrence said it, you have 10 companies, 8 may fail, but 2 will go forward, and then eventually you'll focus on one, but you have that experience and you can go forward. Don't just sit back. If you can do 100 things, I wouldn't advise you to start with 100, but start with some of them. See which ones really pick up, and then you can refine that. But don't sit home saying, oh, if only, if only. That word if is going to kill your dreams. So take that leap, go ahead, do what you have to do, hustle. Every Saturday, well, for now, every Saturday, I'm in Simpson Bay, close to Boutique. There's a blue building. I have my pop-up, I have my boozy pouches, I have my frosés, and I have my popsicles. This Saturday, I have Namaste Cuisine. They're coming in. They're going to have meals as well. I also have these sweet treats. She has a dessert. So you're not only getting your beverage, but you're getting food and dessert. It's like a complete package, one stop. And encourage people, encourage your friends, encourage your family.
I lost you, Dominic.
Yeah.
Dominic, I lost you. No audio.
No audio, no visual either.
Oh, her visual just came off. Dominic, can you hear us?
But anyway, the good point she's making there. So indeed, Saturday, people should come out.
Yeah.
Get the location. I'll
Definitely.
have my cameraman also maybe come and take some shots.
Yeah, I wanted to ask her to just mention the location again, but we lost her there. Let me see. We lost her. I think, yeah, she dropped from the call. But for Terrence, thank you so much for being here for our conversation leading up to today. It's so necessary for us to have this conversation. I really and truly hope that persons who are viewing, regardless of the fact if you're in St. Martin or throughout the region, I saw my friend in Zimbabwe. He is viewing as well. So Farai, thank you for viewing. I know we have several hours of time difference. Farai is a part of the Young World Leaders group I lead. We have an amazing group of, trust you me, amazing group of people who are part of that group, Young World Leaders from throughout the African continent, throughout the Asian continent. So thank you, Farai, for staying up to viewing. And for persons who are in St. Martin and throughout the region, I really and truly hope that you find and you continue to find value in Gyhaffin and the content that we bring out every week. We're listening to persons, we're hearing what is needed, and we're really reacting to what we're hearing. We're really trying to use this platform, not just to chit chat, but to really inform and to be able to bridge social gaps, to move our human race forward and to enhance persons' life experiences. And this is what these conversations are about. It's not an interview, it's more of a discussion. It's Gyhaff, we are Gyaffing. And I really and truly hope, as I said before, that today, I see Sharika said it's a great talk. Ralph, hey Ralph. Ralph said it's a great discussion. Zuri, Thank you. Zuri is actually all the way in New York. So, you know, we have persons from all over here viewing. So thank you very much for that. Every week, let me mention this, every single week, before I get on live, I remember and then I forget, and then I remember and I forget. But I have to pause to shout out my team, Gyhaffin team, Keoma's team. My sister, from the time I started, she's over here shaking, waving her hand, waving. But my sister really and truly assists me with all the technical stuff. People might be like, oh, but it's not that technical, but trust you me. It feels really good to know that there is someone that I can trust and who can assist me with the back end thing. So when I'm busy doing something else, my sister is here. She's over here nagging like, hey, I really have to go to Beautylicious right now, right? So to my sister, thank you very much. To Stacey Ann Taylor, a very good friend of mine. She started her model agency, Stacey and Taylor Studio. So for persons who are interested in joining, make sure you just inquire, check her out. Stacey, you know, whenever I have a question about my style, she always there to compliment me. She was the one who picked out this dress today. So Stacey, thank you so much. My hairstyle, I usually do not do this, but my hairstyle was actually inspired by my friend, Candy. Candy told me that when she looked at the last live, she's like, Keoma, you know, I think you should put your hair up in the bun. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me go do that. So thank you very much for the team, my brother, my nieces, their mother, Mabel. I'm pretty sure she's there. So thank you very much to everyone. And again, so let's just see, you know, we want to hear from you after this gaffing. We really want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know how you think we can improve. Let us know what you want us to talk about. And thank you so much. Everyone, good afternoon, well, evening, and have a very good week until next Thursday. Bye.